Hello, everyone, and welcome to Booming Encore's Tweet Talk. This is where we talk about what's been trending on Twitter and share our opinions and perspectives. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore, and I'm delighted to be joined again by Mike Drak. Mike is the author of Victory Lap Retirement. Morning, Mike.
Morning, Susan.
How are things going?
Good. I'm going out for a bike ride this afternoon, so I'm excited.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I know the good weather is able to kind of open up a whole new world for us, so to speak.
Oh.
So let's just dive right into it. There was a really good article, I thought, written by John Chevreau, who you know personally,
Right.
in Money Sense this past week. And it was on how retirement might change as a result of the pandemic. And just a couple of highlights for you for our audience's sake. He was suggesting that early retirement may become a thing of the past, and if people are able to actually remain in their jobs longer, they probably will, given that there's the financial impacts that this pandemic is having. As well, he's also suggesting that more people may embrace freelance work and gig work. And what I also thought was quite interesting is he's suggesting that our venture into this whole remote work environment may allow people to move to less expensive cities. And finally, one of the other thoughts that he had was that people may be looking now towards income and annuities for guaranteed income, given the shakiness of the market that we've been experiencing. What are some of your thoughts on this, Mike?
That's a lot of stuff, Susan.
It is.
I think it was a very good article. There were a lot of good observations there. I think the pandemic, well, I know for a fact that it exposed a lot of weaknesses in our system that maybe we never really took a good hard look at. I think the defining point was the change from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans. Because what happened was the employers passed all the risk on to the employees.
Yeah.
So all the economic risk sits with them. And I can just imagine someone that was close to retiring. They said, look, I got $1 million in my portfolio. I can finally do it. And then 30% of it vaporized overnight. And he's saying to himself, well, geez, I got to work another 5 years to make up for it, right? And, if that was me, I would have went into shock. Because, the job I was in, I didn't really like, and I was just hanging on. And to add another 5 years of jail time on, that just killed me. So I feel for people, and, but there's ways around it. But you have to plan it out, and you have to know what you're doing.
I think so. I agree with you. I think when that whole shift from DB to DC happened, or into the 401ks in the U.S., it really forced people to actually take responsibility for their own financial retirement planning. But I don't know if we were necessarily skilled or equipped to actually even understand what we were getting ourselves into.
Many aren't. Yeah, many aren't, and that's scary in itself. And it's like many employers just kind of backed off and said, hey, it's your problem, right? We're going to contribute a certain amount of money, but after that, it's your problem. And I really think they need to spend some time educating their employers, or employees, I should say. So they should have like a course for the employees to say, okay, this is how financial planning works. This is how you calculate how much you need for retirement and have an exact amount. So they know what they're doing. And here's some kind of investing strategies, or maybe even here's a financial plan that will support that you get, so you know what you're working towards. But they don't do any of that. And so many people are blind to it. They think they just contribute so much a year, and then, everything's going to be wonderful until like a pandemic hits, or that 2008 meltdown hit too.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about are people that just retired and they lost 30% in their portfolios. They got to be losing a lot of sleep at night, and they're probably considering going back to work, right?
Yeah, I think this is definitely opening up some areas that we have to really take a good look at and figure out how do we shore up, some of these gaps that we're now seeing firsthand. And so definitely lots to talk about on this. And for our viewers out there, we will definitely include this link to this article, which I think offers some great insights into some of the things that may be changing. And I'm sure there are plenty more that's going to happen as a result of this.
For sure.
The other thing that we had shared quite a while back, but seemed to get a lot of traction this week as we shared it out again, was um, there's a thought by Jill Schlesinger on retirement and how we often view it just as a single stage of life, but she's suggesting it's actually broken down into 3 stages of life and that we should probably plan for it differently. So just very quickly, like the first stage sort of being around friends and family, this is when you actually get to do, all the things that you want to. The second stage is around engagement, activity, and accessibility. This is when you start thinking about, longer term needs for support. And she's suggesting that's from like ages 72 to 85. And then the third stage is actually moving closer to support or making sure that you have access to the sport. And this is around sort of ages 80 plus. And she's suggesting that we actually, break down this lifestyle and actually break down how we plan for it financially. Any thoughts on this, Mike?
Well, there's been, a number of books written on it, and they call it various things, but they all, talk about the same thing, really. When you first retire, you're excited, you have high energy, and that's when you do all the fun things. You go traveling, but you can't do that today, of course. but you do all those fun things, and you do the traveling, and you go on the adventures, and you try different hobbies and whatnot. But at some point, your energy starts to go down. You slow down. You say, well, maybe I want to stay closer to home and things like that. So the amount of money you spend actually goes down too, because you're not doing all these extra things. And then eventually, a point hits and you say, well, do I want to stay in this home? Do I want to maintain it? Maybe it's a lot of work. Maybe I should think about going to a retirement home or an apartment and downsize, things like that. But it's really attached to your energy levels and what you want to do. And yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I think also the financial aspects, like you said, I think a lot of people are planning for a single number for every year rather than like these different stages. As you mentioned, you may be doing more activities in the first stage than you are in the second, but if you're just planning it sort of a flat annual income every year, it doesn't necessarily account for these changes or differences in what your behavior patterns may be.
Well, and that's the problem with financial planning, because they assume level spending throughout the plan for 30 years, and just what you said, it's not correct. The heaviest spending are in the early years. The only wild card on the back end is healthcare costs.
Yeah.
So in those, you don't know, you can't control. But that's why it's so important to become healthy, maintain that health, eat properly, do the right things, so you're as healthy as possible for the majority of those 30 years. That's right.
Okay, finally, which I thought was interesting, for the first time on a Tuesday, I actually saw hashtag Travel Tuesday trending. Or I thought, well, that's interesting. Now, what was also interesting, I went in and I took a peek at it, and a lot of it is around how some of the changes to the travel industry are trying to, be managed to be able to allow people social distancing and the things that are necessary in order to keep us safe. What do you think? Do you think people are going to be going back to travel?
I don't think they're going to rush into it until they feel safe. I saw something on the news yesterday. You're talking about you could buy the seat between you, the aisle seat and the window seat, for $29 to make yourself feel more comfortable. And I had to laugh at that, because they're trying, right?
Yeah.
Airlines are under a lot of pressure to get people up back in planes again. They're offering all kinds of discounts. But I just, right now, I'm uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Having said that, I made a promise to a 90-year-old lady yesterday. Her brother lives in Italy. He's 93. And the last thing she wants to do is go back and visit him before time runs out. And I said, well, look, we can't go right now. But I said, if things turn out okay, we'll go next September. But, you have to set a goal. And what I want you to do is start exercising, doing all these things, so you'll have the energy to make the trip. So I went out and bought her a walker. And every day she's out there using the walker on the sidewalks, getting ready, getting strong for the trip. And it gave her something to look forward to. So, I'm happy for. I'm excited about that. But yeah, we'll get back to it. But I don't know when. I don't know when I'll go to a gym again. I'm scared.
Yeah. I was thinking
Go
about
to a movie, right?
well, that was the thing. I was thinking about this, and part of me is like, until I think I get the all clear, I may do some traveling in Canada, but I don't know if I'm too excited about going across any borders at this point.
So saying, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't go into the U.S., but I would only travel in my car. I wouldn't get on a bus. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I want to make sure I've got some way of getting back, because if we do have this sort of boomerang situation, last thing I want to do is be caught somewhere where, it's difficult to get back home or something.
That's right. So don't go on a cruise.
Okay. I'm not going on a cruise. But I also thought what was really interesting is that a lot of people that were doing conventions and things of that nature have moved it to virtual. And it'll be interesting to see what the results are as a result of these virtual conventions, and whether they're actually going to become something that we're going to see more of, or if people are going to actually revert back to that, because that really funds a lot of the industry between the hotels and the convention centers and all the vendors and everything that goes along with it. So,
well, that's a good point. I can see that will be strong because it's so cost effective. Why have to travel? Why book a hotel room when it's right there in the comfort of your own home on the computer, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting times ahead for sure. So
it's going to be a lot of changes. Sure.
Okay, so on that note, Mike, thanks again for your time. Always appreciate it.
All right, you take care, Susan. My pleasure.
All right, and to everybody out there, hope you found this information interesting. You can find the links to the content that we're talking about on our website, and hope you had fun living your best booming Encore. Bye for now, everyone.